Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, the birthplace of Congregational Humanism. We carry on that tradition of free thought today, dedicated to promoting a free search for truth, meaning, and justice. Our web address is firstunitarian.org. I'm David Breeden, Senior Minister. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Sunday Assembly for January 15th. It's a playoff day somewhere, and I see that Viking jersey, and we're delighted to have you here. You know, you folks can move up a little further forward if you want. We are learning what it is like to live with chairs instead of pews in our physical space here, and wherever you are seated today, we are delighted that you're here as a part of our gathered community. For you folks online, we hope that you'll make use of the chat feature and check in with each other about saying hello and about what you hear in assembly this morning. For those of you in the building, we're delighted to see your faces. Glad you found parking on the way in this morning. We hope that you will join us downstairs after assembly for our mini meal. Today we have, Thai mock duck with soba noodles, honey garlic chicken on basmati rice, and artichoke chickpea salad. Yum, yum. While downstairs, we hope that you will stop by the card basket to send a note to folks who are unable to attend assembly or people that we mention in joys and concerns. Also, stop by the Active Voices table to sign your postcards. We are protecting Minnesota water, such an important thing to do. So please sign a postcard to send to your electeds. And thank you to the continued hard work of our Active Voices team. I want to give you a few heads up about things that are happening in the building today. At 12 o'clock in the Chalice Room downstairs, we have Drew Bakius for part 4 of his Embodied Humanism session. And it doesn't matter if you haven't attended the earlier ones. Drew welcomes you to come for this really lively conversation. If Drew Bakius is doing it, it's a lively conversation. Also at noon today, those of you who are volunteers for the Love to Read program, we're having a training in the Skyline Room, which is just down this hall here. Next week, I'll be talking about a survey that we've done congregation-wide, the Convergence Survey, which gives us a snapshot of the health of our congregation. So I hope you'll plan to attend that. And next week at noon, Katie Dillon, who is the executive director of Align Minneapolis, a coalition of congregations working to address homelessness in our city, will talk to us about what's up for the coming legislative session. Our theme this month is centering. I had my reading handy, and now, where did it go? On this Martin Luther King weekend, we'll share these words of his, a network of mutuality. See where you hear your center in this. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. There are some things in our social system to which all of us ought be maladjusted. Hatred and bitterness can never cure the disease of fear. Only love can do that. We must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of such a method is love. Before it is too late, we must narrow the gaping chasm between our proclamations of peace and our lowly deeds which precipitate and perpetuate war. One day we must come to see that peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but a means by which we arrive at that goal. We must pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means, and we shall hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. Come, let us gather in community.
Hi, good morning. I don't know if it's on. Now it's on. I would like to say a couple of words about the three pieces that I will be playing today, because I selected them especially trying to, in some ways, highlight our theme of the month, centering. So the very first one, Chopin Mazurka, it's more of a musical, probably technical explanation of what is centering. This piece is written in the key of C sharp minor, and it is very clear throughout the piece how every note written in it really relates to this key center of C sharp minor. Always going back to these notes, starting on it, going back to it throughout the song. And it's more of like a musical example of centering. Then the second piece that I will play, it's a piece by Schumann. It's called, I'm on a cycle called Fantasy Pieces. And this is more of actually a reflection. The piece is called In the Evening. And I think that part of the theme of centering is reflecting, of course, about ourselves and our place here. And I cannot think of a better music to actually do that than the piece by Schumann that I'm going to play. Really with a reflective spirit. Finally, the third piece that I will play is a piece by Ravel, Jet d'eau, which means games of water. And since we're talking about us, about finding our place here in the world, I think it's always a good moment to remind ourselves that in a great percentage we are water, and water is probably the most important substance for life, right? And probably the reason why we are all here. And what better than, just a depiction of it in the piano. So I hope you will enjoy all three pieces. Thank you.
Amos, what a pleasure to have you with us again today. We begin our assembly by lighting our chalice with either one of the 7 Unitarian Universalist principles or one of our 4 FUS aspirations. Today we light this remembering the second aspiration of FUS. We aspire to make the change we need for a more just, compassionate, and peaceful world. And now let's sing together. You may rise if you are willing and able. Our song is Love Will Guide Us, and you'll see the lyrics come up here. Please. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. Love will reach the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. Please remain standing for our congregational covenant. Love is the spirit of this place, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you. Please be seated.
Good morning. My name is Ann Langard. I'm a longtime member here, and I have the privilege of inviting you all to make a donation today to the First Unitarian Society. I know that whenever I make a donation, I think of it as a way of saying thank you, whether it's to the Unitarian Society or to any other organization that I support and care about. I think together we can say thank you for this beautiful building, the wonderful staffing, the fine music, the programming that goes on both inside the building and in the community, the service we provide beyond this building. There's many ways to say thank you, and one of them is with the donation. I know that I'm very grateful to this congregation on a personal level for all of the warmth and friendship that it's brought to my family and to me over many decades. So I invite you to consider a donation this morning and express how you feel about this wonderful place. The easiest way to give is to go to our website, firstunitarian.org, click the Give link at the upper right corner. You can also give on PayPal, the Vanco mobile app. I clearly don't use that. Is that Vanco or Vanco? Vanco. And there's always sending a check. For those of you who are here in the building today, if you step outside these doors and go to the right, you will find our office, and you will find Kate Goodrich, our warm and welcoming receptionist, who will warmly receive a check or cash, and I can guarantee you she will say thank you. And I thank you today.
First Unitarian Society is a congregational humanist community. That means we are here for each other. On Sundays, we take a few moments to reflect on the joys, the milestones, and the sorrows of the human experience. In doing this, we remind ourselves of the value of a moment of stillness. We remind ourselves to stay in touch with our own humanity. And as a gathered community, we do this so that no one among us is alone, either in celebrating life's joys or in facing life's tragedies and difficulties. We are here for each other. This morning, I want to tell you that we have set a date for longtime member Nancy Miller's memorial service. It will be on the Saturday of Mother's Day weekend, May 13th, here in this space. You'll see more about that, but you may put it on your calendars. And this morning, I want to take a moment for us all to send love and good wishes with our Love to Read volunteers. First Unitarian Society is privileged to host a Minneapolis charter school, the Love Works Academy, in our building during the week. Most of us don't see or know anything about them being here, but they're important to us, and this place is important to them. We have 28 volunteers who will begin this month meeting with classrooms of children for 3 days a week, an hour each day, to help these students read. Their reading scores are not where they want them to be, where the school is hoping they'll be, and so this congregation, who loves to read, is coming together to share that love of reading, that passion, with these students. I want to say to you volunteers that our love and good wishes go with you. We are with you as you do this important work. If we were a different kind of place, we'd call this a blessing. For now, let's call it a commissioning. We stand with you as you do this very important work, and you have our gratitude, and we hope to hear back that you'll share your stories of these encounters and how it deepens your sense of commitment to this place and this work that we hold so dear. Now let's take a few moments to reflect on the world and those who work to comfort and heal the suffering and those who work for justice. It's a moment for us to sing our children out to their religious education classes. Thank you for being with us for this time of music and sharing, and we'll sing you out. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. And change will come to you. Be the light you want to shine in the world. Be the light you want to shine in the world. Be the light you want to shine in the world, and change will come to you.
Not working? Well darn. Well darn. Well, we always have to keep a little bit flexible there. We had a TikTok video, but it's not ticking apparently, or talking either. Oh well. Well, we'll work from there, and if we get it working later, we can throw it in and a little bit later. Well, I've got a good question for you on this Martin Luther King weekend, and that is, can the United States ever get past its racist beginnings, what many people call our original sin? When we look around, it's easy to despair. I mean, how many committee meetings in how many cities have occurred since the murder of George Floyd? That's easy to despair when you think about it, and how many young people of color have died since. Yet, we are not a people of despair. The climate crisis, racism in America, broken systems, unjust systems, we keep hoping and we keep working because we believe that human beings can fix human problems. And we ask, what can we do? Well, it's time for us to embrace that kind of commitment as we look at the Martin Luther King Day weekend. And then we can ask, what can be done? After all, we do believe in evidence, and so here is some evidence for you that we can look at from pediatrics nationwide. Researchers have shown that babies of color are just as likely to experience bias as adults of color. But very young children don't interpret that experience in the same way as older children do. Children become aware of differences in physical characteristics of human beings, says this article, by the time they're 3 years old. They notice differences in sex, male, female, height, weight, hair texture, skin color, and so on. They see difference. These differences in physical characteristics are all normal. They're just part of our human variations as we go along. But by this age of 3, we are aware of them, and by age 4, children are aware of the social context of race. By age 4. They begin to recognize their own racial group and those of others. Depending on home and community experience, they may start to discriminate between certain variations of people, and they even choose playmates, some kids, according to those biases and differences. Children at 4 years of age are still in the early stage of racial identity development, where children of color tend to relate more to the dominant culture. Here in the United States, you know what that is. It's white culture. This is called the pre-encounter phase of racial identity development for children of color, says Dr. Spinks Franklin in this article. Now, children by the age of 9 become aware of their racial group's status within the larger society. Before, they just knew there were differences. Now they know where the status levels are, up, down, etc. For children of color, this is called the encounter phase. By this age, children are aware of their group, how their group is treated unfairly or differently, or if their group is in a position of power. The encounter phase is a big developmental leap because it occurs during many other aspects of identity development, including gender identity development. So that's what I want you to think about today. Notice that children at age 9 years become aware of their racial group's status within the larger society. And that's what I'm getting at today. Yes, we all know that race is a social construct, and we also know it is a damaging social construct. Further, most kids figure it out by the age of around 4 and figure out the social implications of that by the age of 9. This needs to be said. Whether family and teachers talk about it or not, kids have already got it figured out. So we ought to talk about it as parents, and I will come back to that in a bit. Well, my bags are all packed. I'm wearing my Johnny Cash traveling clothes today. I'm flying to Atlanta, Georgia later in the afternoon. The Minneapolis downtown senior clergy have planned a civil rights tour for this coming week, something we're calling the Pilgrimage, an interfaith civil rights journey. Now, I consider myself very fortunate to be invited along with this august group on this journey, and I'm invited because I represent you. So thanks a lot for allowing me to represent you on this trip. Tomorrow, Monday, MLK Day, we will be at Ebenezer Baptist Church in downtown Atlanta. That's where both Martin Luther King Sr. and Martin Luther King Jr. served as senior ministers. And the current senior minister there, you may know, is U.S. Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock. All right, yeah, absolutely. Now, President Biden will be one of the speakers, so it's a fairly hot ticket. People are camped out on the sidewalk, even as we speak, to get in tomorrow. Now, we downtown clergy are fortunate to get an invite to that historic church for that big event because the senior minister at Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church here in Minneapolis, a wonderful young man by the name of Reverend Elijah McDavid III, has invited us. Elijah's grandfather, Reverend Elijah McDavid Sr., was an influential leader during the Civil Rights era, one of the inner circles for MLK. Reverend Elijah has been kind enough to get us invited into the building on that day, and he's a person that I want to listen to on this trip on the question of race and what we can do coming up in the future. Now, by the way, all of you will be getting an invite to his church, Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church, in April, when we will be talking about the trip that we are about to take. Some of our churches, not us, have fairly deep pockets, and so we are going to take a videographer along to do a documentary about this trip. Also joining in the trip is a friend of FUS that many of you know. That's Makram Al-Amin. He's the imam at Masjid An-Nur, the Masjid of Light, it means, in North Minneapolis. From a historical perspective, Makram's father and mother were leaders of the Nation of Islam back during the civil rights days in South Chicago, and Makram continues to be one of the most important voices and influential voices on racial justice here in Minneapolis in our own time. Imam Makram is also someone I want to listen to on this trip and learn from him on these questions. Now, also joining us is a new-ish senior minister from Plymouth Congregational Church. Some of you have seen me talk with him. We did a conversation back around Easter time of last year. Reverend Dr. Dwayne Davis is the child of 2 ministers and one of 15 kids, all right? And he grew up in southern Mississippi. Now, he's somebody I want to listen to. He is on a commission here in town working on police reform. Reverend Davis grew up both black and gay in southern Mississippi. So I'd say that, you remember that thing about social status and realizing it? I'd say that somewhere along the line, Rev. Dwayne said, "You're black, you're gay, get out of here, quick," right? And fortunately, he lives here in Minneapolis now, and he knows a whole lot that I want to listen to. These are 3 leaders that I deeply respect, and I'm very honored to be with them on this trip, as with some other of our ministerial colleagues. We will be traveling to Selma, Alabama, if we can. Some of you have heard that Selma had a really bad tornado last week. Several people were killed in that area. We're still hoping to go, and if we do, we will be talking with the City Council of Selma, and I will be offering them some money to help them out. And next week, next Sunday, we will have our special offering here to raise money to donate to Selma. Some of you have probably seen the footage. Selma is an extremely poor city, and it was very, very badly damaged. So we do hope to go to Selma. Now, when we go to Selma, we will be talking about people, some martyrs. Jimmy Lee Jackson was a young man murdered by the Alabama police. He was the reason the Selma activity began. So we'll be talking about him. And also, as many of you know, we UUs have 2 martyrs to the cause of voting rights in Alabama from 1965. One of them was the Reverend James Reeb, who went there as a young man. I think he was about 25 when he was killed. Here he's pictured with Dr. Ralph Abernathy, and those are Abernathy's 3 kids that he's holding the hands of. And of course you see MLK and Coretta Scott King behind him, sort of before MLK became the MLK that you see in the historical pictures, right? But there he is. And Reverend Reeb was murdered by white supremacists in downtown Selma in 1965. Now, things you can't make up, right? He was from Casper, Wyoming. So, right? A white guy from Casper, Wyoming, but he did give his life for this cause. Also, we will be remembering Viola Liuzzo, who was a UU layperson. She was shot by the KKK as she drove Selma marchers back from the march to Birmingham. We forget in history, you got to march there, and how are you going to get back? Well, she was driving people back. A white woman with black people in the car, and so they shot her through the windshield with a double-barrel shotgun. As always with history, the story is considerably more complicated than the thumbnail histories that come down to us. You just can't make movies about everything. Some of you attended a memorial service here for FUS member Bill Weir several months ago. He too went to Selma in 1965 as a young minister, and I told the story at that time that in the confusion of that time period, Bill's wife got a call from the Unitarian Universalist Association office in Boston that Bill had been shot and killed in Selma. Now, he got back home and walked in not having realized he had been reported murdered. So that was a little bit surprising, but such was the confusion of Selma in 1965. These were really brave human beings. Dr. King knew he was a marked man from that time forward. He was 35 years old in the picture that you saw, and he was murdered at age 39. Yes, he would be 94 tomorrow had he lived. And yeah, most of us who remember those days are getting on a little bit in years, but we remember those days if we were somewhere around. We in the United States still have not atoned for our original sin of racism. And again, I have to ask that question, how many young people of color have been tortured and murdered since the death of George Floyd? And when I read the news about the tornadoes last week, I just thought of the poverty of that area. It's an extremely poor part of the United States. Selma is in what is known as the Black Belt. That's come to have two different meanings. The Black Belt, first of all, because of the quality of the soil. As a farmer, I know black dirt is the best dirt. It was also perfect for plantation agriculture. And so when you think of the plantations of the Old South, you're probably thinking of things in that area. After the Civil War and the end of legal slavery, the counties in the Black Belt of Alabama, and there was a little bit of the Black Belt goes on over into Georgia and on over into Mississippi, the majority of people were African American. And the same, of course, was true in the Mississippi Delta. The brutality and open suppression of African American personhood was open there because whites were outnumbered. But guess what? They were all in positions of power in government. And in those days, no black people were there. And that's why they were being prevented from voting. Another thing that needs to be said is that the Black Belt is still one of the poorest places in the United States. People there are still waiting for that solemnly promised 40 acres and a mule, and it still hasn't arrived. I suspect that most Americans, if I ask you, what's the poorest place in America? You would say Appalachia. Well, you probably know that because it's white. And the Black Belt is predominantly African American. Racism, it's just built into the way history is taught and unfortunately the way so many of us think. So, remember the Black Belt. Now, life is really strange, I have learned to know. You know that maybe know that I've been lecturing at the men's lectures, and one of the things that I've been talking about with those, I've done 2 of 3 at this point, is about the intersections of religion and race in the United States. And one of the things that I've talked about is my own experience during the civil rights years living in the South, mostly the Deep South, when I was a little kid. And yeah, by 9 years old, I did know the social structure. But despite that, I was attending integrated churches at that time. Now, how the heck could that be? How could it be that when people were getting killed in the South for simply sitting next to each other, how did we have integrated churches? Well, for one thing, we Pentecostals were super poor. So we were outside of any kind of power structure. So basically nobody even noticed us. And I'm sharing with you a contemporary picture. This is a sign. I don't think Minneapolis City Code would allow this sign for FUS, probably. But this is from today, from the Dolly Pond Church. It's on the border of Tennessee and Georgia, and it's a Pentecostal church. Now, how do I know that? And how did we find each other back in those days? Well, the sign tells people what they're doing inside that building. And I will give unto thee keys of the kingdom of heaven, says the verse. And there are 3 verses. They're all basically about, hey, you can have the keys to heaven, right? And so what is going on inside that church? Well, it's Pentecostal, we know, because of the miracle of salvation, the sign says, with signs following. With signs following. And that tells those of us who know that they're speaking in tongues, they're getting slayed in the Spirit, there's miraculous healing and exorcisms, and they're dancing in the Spirit and generally holy rolling around. Well, in the early 60s, that's the kind of integrated church that I was attending as a very little kid. Why? Well, because of Pentecostalism. No, the Universalists and the Unitarians did not achieve integration in 1965, or certainly in 1904, but the Pentecostals did. The Azusa Street revival was 60 years before the civil rights movement, 60 years previous. Most people who look at the photos now probably don't see how radical these photos are. Maybe you have to have been 9 years old in the Deep South like me to really see what's so interesting about this. Maybe you had to grow up in the Jim Crow South. But a photo of a black man sitting while white men are standing is impossible in the American South. That is a lynching offense. That black man is William J. Seymour. Now, chances are you haven't heard of him unless you've been listening to my men's lectures, because we don't really talk about him in this country because we have a very racist narrative going on here. But William J. Seymour created the Pentecostal movement that is now the fastest growing religious movement on the planet. He needs to be known about. In photos of the Azusa Street revival period, we see black and white people sitting down together. Black and white people, men and women sitting down together. This is 1904. This is the height of the lynching era here in the United States. Yet in photos, you see a black man sitting beside a white woman and a little white girl. Impossible. Lynching offense. Yet, here they are, human beings sitting together, and some of them, if you look closely, you can even see that they're smiling a little bit, something else you didn't do in 1904 for a photograph. And in my mind anyway, I'm thinking one of them just said, "God is mightier than old Jim Crow," right? White supremacists were chewing their teeth, as we say down south, when they saw this kind of thing. Now, this did occur in Southern California, by the way, the Azusa Street revival. And then from California, they bring it back to the Deep South. My parents, married in 1950, were married by a woman minister, a Pentecostal woman minister. It was a thing that happened. Now, remember that I mentioned that Reverend Dr. Dwayne Davis, who's going with us on the trip, is a child of two ministers? Well, as a Southerner, I don't have to ask why that is. Given his age, it's because Brother Dwayne was raised Pentecostal. His mother was a preacher. Now, how could a bunch of poor, uneducated people achieve something that we still haven't accomplished in this nation over a century later? Well, that's what I'm talking about in those men's lectures. But the simple answer is they believed in their Bible, as we would say. And Galatians 3:28 is where they got it. It says, "There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither bond nor free. There is neither male nor female. For ye are all one in Christ Jesus." All right. Now, remember that handwritten sign earlier that said "Miracle of Salvation with Signs Following." Brother William J. Seymour, now, and I should mention that Pentecostals don't use the reverend honorific. We're all just brother and sister. We're all on an equal plane is part of the idea. Brother Seymour, the child of formerly enslaved people from southern Louisiana, believed that salvation implied the loss of racism and sexism. If you brought it to Jesus, you were over your racism and your sexism. You were healed of the sin of racism and sexism if you were touched by the Holy Ghost, as we called it back in those days. Now, the title of my talk today is "What We Can't Say, What We Don't Say, and What We Need to Say." Now, I'm going to tell you something that almost nobody knows, but it is something I think that needs to be said. Paul, as in, St. Paul, the guy they named the city over there after, right, was a good writer, and he was a very strong philosopher. Now, many Christians think that's because God was whispering in his ear. I don't happen to think that. I think he had a really good education. He was trained as a rabbi, first of all, but he was also trained in Stoic philosophy. When Paul wrote Galatians 3:28, he was using a Stoic concept known as covenantia naturae, which means a covenant with nature. Covenantia naturae. Now, that's the Latin, and if you want to listen to me another 25 minutes, I can tell you how the Hebrew and the Greek add up to that. But
That's a footnote for another time. For the Stoics, we human beings must realize that we're born into covenantia naturae. We automatically have a covenant, an agreement with nature, because we were born in this place, in this nature, all right? We are part of it, intimately so. Now, what does all that mean? It means that we're very much a part of nature, and we must live according to the laws of nature. That's part of the covenant. It means getting outside of our subjectivity and those bad messages that we pick up by the time we're 9 years old. We have to get out of those and get in covenant with what's actually happening in nature. We have to realize what it means to be human, that all humans are human. We have to know what it means to have consciousness and what our obligations are. Because we have consciousness, we can make decisions. And it means that we must be part of the warp and the weft of all of nature, that mutuality that MLK talked about. Now, 4-year-olds and 9-year-olds know a truth that we too soon forget. It's all social convention. Nature says that there is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither bond nor free. There is neither male nor female, because all those concepts are human social constructions. What they mean. You got to do this. You got to do that. No, nature says this is what you have to do, right? The early Pentecostals figured that out. They left those pernicious human prejudices and stereotypes outside their church doors. Yes, they could die out in school if they did that, but in the church doors, they got over those sins. And that's how I grew up as a white kid in the early 1960s, attending actually integrated churches where white men, black women were the preachers and spoke to us. And we listened to them because God was speaking. Right, that's how we got there. And here's the spiritual truth that both St. Paul and William J. Seymour knew. And you can learn this spiritual covenantal truth as well. All of us can leave the lies that our society tells us outside the church doors. And indeed, outside our lives nowadays, because those martyrs died in Selma. It's hard work. No, we're not going to be able to escape the constant messages of difference, of suspicion, even hatred of each other. Those voices are everywhere. Those structures are everywhere. But I'm here to say that some human beings have managed to love despite all of it, and we can too.
Amen to that. Amen. Let's sing about it. We are building a new way. Please stand as you are able. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. Feeling stronger every day. Lords, for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. All these we carry in our hearts and in our minds until we are together again.
Go out into the world. Be fearless. Ask questions. Hold on to what is good. Strengthen the weak. Comfort the fearful. Serve the suffering. Do what makes you come alive. Rejoice in the power of the human spirit. So may it be.